I'm sure that if you're a writer who has a life, you're probably like me. You probably juggle a bunch of different tasks from writing to promoting to, working to having family and social life and all of these other things. And if you're anything like me and you've got a couple podcasts, you're publishing a couple books a year minimum, people are probably asking you, how do you get it all done? Now, many of you who are listening to this right now are probably like, wait a second, I'm not publishing a couple books a year. If you are, good for you. You've got it all figured out, unless you're feeling like you're nearing burnout. But if you are not being able to do this sort of thing and juggle all the tasks you need to do, plus write a couple books a year, I would challenge you to listen to this podcast episode, because as a writing coach who has created a program called From Idea to Published in 6 months that incorporates everything from beginning to end, including your author platform, I believe that yes, you can get it all done without burning out, without losing your mind, and without being too single-minded and having zero life on the side. So let's talk about how not to waste time when you're writing and promoting a book, and also how to literally almost make time like magic. I'm going to be talking about some of the massive time-saving hacks I use, and also so many of those sneaky ways in which a lot of writers can waste time. And I'm going to help you to see if that's what you're doing. So let's figure out how to get forward in the best, most effective way possible as an author on this episode of the How to Be an Author podcast. Let's dive right in. If you're a writer dreaming of becoming a successful author, join me, writing coach Karena Akhavein, on the How to Be an Author podcast, your weekly source for writing information, inspiration, and motivation. Hello, and welcome to the How to Be an Author podcast. I am your host, writing coach Karena Akhavein, PhD. It is my passion in life to teach you, help you, guide you as you make your dreams come true of writing your book and publishing it and building the kind of writing career that you've always dreamed of. But realistically, it's also my passion in life to write my own books, and I have to prioritize that. This is something that I'm constantly fighting to make the time to do. So we're not going to be talking about finding the time in this episode. We're going to be talking about making the time, making up the time, saving time, finding hacks that make the most of your time. All of those things are crucial when you're wanting to balance everything out, but also be a book writing machine. Because here's the thing, the best way of promoting one book is to write another book, and the best way to be a successful author is to have more than just one book under your belt and on your library shelves. So the first thing that I would say is that you definitely want to prioritize your writing time. So even though, yeah, you need to work because that's how you make your money and support yourself. Yes, you need to devote time to your family, to your relationships, to your friends, to your health. Yes, but writing time, if you are dreaming of being a successful author, it is also a non-negotiable part of your schedule. That means that just like all those other things that you set specific blocks of time each day to, you also have to have a dedicated time that is just for writing. You need to treat it like any other important appointment. Listen, I know authors who have wasted years of their life procrastinating because so many other things are going on, because they needed to clean their closet, because they needed to, get fit, because they needed to volunteer at their kids' school. That's great. You can do all of those things. Just because you have a bunch of things doesn't mean that you cannot prioritize your writing time. Even if that means a very small block of time today, you must dedicate time solely to writing, because true multitasking is not possible. And you need to focus on writing. You need to get into the vibe, but also don't use the excuse that I don't have that much time. I have written segments of my books in the car. I have done it while sitting there and waiting for my kids on my phone. I have done it on my computer, like literally just as I went from brushing my teeth to going to bed. So you can prioritize and find little moments of time. It's going to be incredibly valuable. The other thing that you really need to schedule time for is promotional activities, social media posts, outreach to influencers, book signings. By scheduling these tasks, you can ensure that they don't interfere with your writing time, but you can also ensure that they happen. And also, you can have these blocks of time that you meant to devote to something. The minute it's not working out for that thing, I'm going to explain how this works, just bear with me. Reassign the time to something else that moves your writing career forward. So, for example, today, I was going to be working on some social media posts and I was going to be working on editing my book. But I got a migraine and I couldn't look at the screen anymore. So, guess what I'm doing right now? I'm recording my podcast because that is one of my promotional activities. As a writing coach, it feeds me. It's one of those things. And also I'm talking about writing and I'm kind of, saving time. And I've told myself this way, the time that I usually record my podcast, I'm going to reallot and reallocate to writing. So don't let that writing time be supplanted by everything else. If you do something else at a time when you were meant to be writing, now schedule the writing for the time you meant to use for that task. Another thing that really works is time blocking and, using these time management techniques so that your time doesn't run away with you, because time does expand to, do whatever you want. You can make it expand into endless time. So if you're using things like the Pomodoro technique to try to get a scene written, or if you are trying to do something like, okay, I'm going to do X number of social media posts. If you put yourself on a timer, that's going to prevent you from wasting time with that time running away from you, with staying there and kind of dawdling as you work on a task. So if you're putting yourself on a timer and you're saying, you know what, I've got an hour for social media, I've got 20 minutes to write the scene, you are going to stay on top of it. Another thing that I really recommend doing is outsourcing non-writing tasks. So if you are doing things that don't need your direct involvement, things like graphic design, things like scheduling social media posts, things like managing email newsletters, can you hire an assistant or can you use an app that is going to help to streamline that process? Can you also batch similar tasks so that you do it all at once and then you schedule it out? You'd be surprised. It takes a chunk of time, but then you'd be surprised at how much time it frees up. But again, it's kind of important to be in a schedule of doing things, because if you batch too many tasks ahead of time, when it comes time to redo those, you don't have that groove going. So you have to be kind of careful about how long you leave before you now start doing those things again. So one example, when I record my podcasts, I used to batch and do like 6 podcasts in one day. And then I wouldn't have to do it again for 6 weeks. But then those 6 weeks would sneak up on me. And all of a sudden I'd be like, oh no, I need to record more podcasts. And I wouldn't be in the groove of it. And it would be pretty daunting. So sometimes when you have a bunch of plates spinning in the air, it doesn't take as much energy and it doesn't take as much attention to keep those plates spinning as it does to drop all the plates and pick them back up again and getting them back up there. So remember that. Remember that everybody's brain works differently. Everybody has a different relationship to time and to work. So make sure that you're making things easier, not harder for you. So always be checking in on yourself. See if the goals that you've set for yourself or the way that you're doing things, make sure that that's realistic and that it's not overwhelming you and that it's manageable to you and that it's not distracting and that it's not stressing you out. All of those things are super, super crucial. Now, let's talk about some of the massive time-saving hacks that I use with my writing and with everything else to try to make time rather than just saving time so that I make sure that I'm always moving forward. So one of the writing tools that I use is AI. ChatGPT actually helps me a lot with various aspects of writing and promotion. Because here's the thing, when you overthink things and you over agonize over things that don't matter, you're wasting time. So one thing that, for example, a press release doesn't have to be pure poetry. It needs to get information out. So you can definitely get ChatGPT to craft your press releases. And then you can read over it and make it sound a little bit more interesting, but you don't need to worry about writing that press release from zero. Just feed in some of the information and ChatGPT is going to get it done in so much less time. Same thing goes for example, a blog post. Now, you don't want ChatGPT to write your whole blog post because that doesn't sound great, but it can definitely generate ideas and outlines. And then you can put your own personal spin on it. One thing that I have ChatGPT do as well is I have it kind of brainstorm ideas for my social media content. I'll say, I'm a writing coach trying to help writers to write their books. What should I be posting? And it's going to give me some ideas. Do I like all those ideas? Absolutely not. But can I use some of them? Also, yes. And it takes me a lot less time than agonizing over it. And I'll do the same thing for my author promotion stuff. So that's kind of great. Another thing that you can have ChatGPT do is conduct research on relevant topics or even on trends in your genre. Now, you have to take these things with a grain of salt because ChatGPT can sometimes be wrong, but it does definitely help. One thing that I did the other day, I was trying to come up with this kind of supernatural creature. And I told ChatGPT, these are the characteristics of this creature, and I want you to give it a name that's going to fit into my book, which is so-and-so genre. And they live here, they do this. Let me tell you, ChatGPT did really, really well coming up with a bunch of different potential names for these creatures. And then I plugged in, okay, so imagine that this creature is like this. What do you think their strengths and weaknesses are? And also, what do you think some of the issues would be with these creatures living side by side with humans? All kinds of questions that ChatGPT was basically able to do the brainstorming for me on. Of course, I'm the final boss of what I do and say and decide, but ChatGPT is so good at brainstorming. So that's really kind of great. Now, here's another great thing that I use ChatGPT for. You all know, or many of you know, that I use dictation to write my books lightning fast. Now, how do I do that? Well, first of all, you need to outline your book because you need to kind of know before you start what is going to happen. Now, remember that an outline is a roadmap, and sometimes we got some blurry sections in the map. Sometimes I know what's happening at the beginning and the end, and I need to start connecting the dots. And sometimes I like to have a little bit more written down before I figure out what's going on. I want my characters to kind of reveal themselves so that I can know what I want to write. But definitely once I know those things, I can start to write scene by scene, and I can do that through dictation. So as somebody who's ADHD, I go and I take a drive and I'm going to record scene by scene. And on any given day, I'm able to get easily 10,000 words down. Now, of course, are these words trash? Yes, many of them are. But with practice, I've learned to get some things down that are really great. Sometimes the dialogue can be really good, but you might be thinking to yourself, wow, when I'm dictating that dialogue, the punctuation's probably all messed up or non-existent. Or, there's some mistakes and things like that. Haha, yes, my friend. That's where my streamlined time-saving hack involving ChatGPT comes in. So I put my recording of my voice memo into a program called Descript. Descript now transcribes it for me, and I eliminate the extra gaps between words. I eliminate filler words, things like whatever. And now I feed that into my Word doc. I do a find and replace where I'm eliminating any extra paragraph marks, any extra spaces, and then I cut about 1,000 words by 1,000 words, and I put it into ChatGPT, and I tell ChatGPT to correct grammar, syntax, and punctuation. And I also can tell ChatGPT what the genre is, what the style is, and what to look for. So is this going to be perfect? Absolutely not. Is it, however, going to give me something infinitely better to start editing later? Also, definitely yes. Now remember, you want to be realistic. What's your goal? Is your goal to write the great American novel? In this case, you're definitely not going to be doing any of the things I just mentioned. But is your goal to write a really good popular romance novel, thriller, or mystery? This can definitely help. Anything within genre fiction, you can be using some of these things. You don't have to use all of them, but literally doing some of them is really making time. Another thing where I like to set these goals is with deadlines. I set deadlines for myself. I make them realistic but ambitious because there is such an easy way of procrastinating when you don't have a set deadline. That time, again, it expands. So find a significant deadline. I want to be done with my rough draft by the first day of spring so I can really enjoy this picnic. Or I want to be done with my, second draft so I can get it to my beta readers before I go on vacation. Things like that. All of this makes so much sense when you're setting these goals that are ambitious and that get you moving. It prevents you from overthinking, because here's the thing. Overthinking is definitely your enemy. Embrace that rough draft. Don't get bogged down trying to perfect every sentence or paragraph in your first draft. Focus on getting your ideas down. Worry about refining and editing later. The first draft is just the beginning, but also there is such a thing as over-editing. So definitely take advantage of those writing tools and software that can help you to streamline your workflow, for sure, and then take breaks and rest and determine when is it good enough. You're also going to seek feedback. This really helps you to not get all up in your head and keep polishing things beyond what they need to be polished. But then you also want to be selective about who you share your work with and what kind of edits you're going to do. You cannot be all things to all people. And sometimes it's best to be done with the book rather than have one perfect book in your whole entire career. Remember, with all these different strategies that I have, staying disciplined, you can definitely make the most of your time and avoid wasting precious hours when writing your book. I want you to realize that it's always a choice and that you must have a healthy relationship to time and scheduling so that you don't get burnt out, but that you're also able to do that thing that you've been dreaming of. I never want to see you get to the end of your life and be like, I never took the time to write my book. So make the time today. And if you need any more help on how to do this effectively, if you need to be kept on track, if you need all of those things, call me up, email me, check out my website, creativeandwritingcoach.com or onlineCoursesForWriters.com, because I've got these wonderful coaching hours and also Writing Coach on Demand, which in only 15 minutes a week is going to keep you on track and keep you moving forward more than you ever imagined possible. That's it, my friend. Good luck this week. I hope you get so much done. Let me know if any of these techniques actually helped you, or maybe you have some hacks I didn't think of. I love to learn new things and find out new ways of helping my writers. So if you want to share something with me that you've used that worked really well, let me know. And I'm looking forward to being with you next time on the How to Be an Author podcast. If you have any pressing writing-related questions or would like to be featured on the How to Be an Author podcast, please feel free to reach out on my website, creativeandwritingcoach.com.